The Villagers program was something in my heart that developed over time. I always felt called to do something with the earth. I think part of what has come out of that is my desire to welcome people into a relationship with the earth, because it is dynamic. It is also sacred. After I was here a year, I realized that I was really feeling an ache with all this land here to grow some vegetables, at least for ourselves. Within about 5 years, I had become involved in ministry here that in a sense was a little outside of what the spiritual ministry of what I was called to. During those years, I began to see how they flowed together and that they really could be part of one another. So it made me more determined to do more theology, because my instinctive heart feeling was that it was at the foundation of our faith, that we were connected to the earth. But we live in a different world now, and we've lost that connection. So in scripture, in prayer, in sacramental theology, I believed it could be there.
Well, the Village Earth program, it is formally a theological program out of the University of Toronto for graduate students.
And of course, that theology we have, it is balanced with theology, spirituality, and praxis.
What the Villa is able to achieve is combining these three aspects of a integrated or holistic theology together. So students do participate in the program in prayer morning and evening, also with very, very rigorous academic theology. But then academic theology really perhaps doesn't mean anything unless it's lived out in context. And then it's if you like, also getting our hands dirty and putting our hands in the soil. And Sister Linda does a great deal during the course on how do we actually live out this spirituality and this theology? How do we live it? And it is through her sessions that combine organic gardening with the theoretical component and the spiritual component that makes it this wonderful holistic theology that finds its meaning in context and leads from the academic to discipleship.
I know how important it is to grow food, and I also know how that connects you to the land. So learning the basics of organic growing is taught in this course. So there's a connection on 3 different levels, and it's holistic, and it's a part of what excites me in presenting this program and offering it to students.
The garden is a rejuvenating place. It brings back memories of my childhood. You know, we get busy when we become young adults and even adults, and we forget how healing it is to care for something other than humans.
It can be a time of refreshment and a time of being able to be alone with your thoughts as you're working.
The garden is something that subdues and silences me, not in a bad way, but in a way that makes me feel like I am in the presence of mystery and holy and much bigger than me. So the garden is a place of silence and awe and wonder.
I'm learning to be silent. And so this course is actually forcing me a little bit more to shut up and listen, to hear what God says.
Well, in one sense, I hope that each of the participants will take away enjoyment, of course, will take away some very solid theological learning. But most importantly, what I really hope for the participants is that they fall in love with God's beautiful creation. We also look at aspects of church history to show the trajectory of an awareness of creation through theology of our time. We look at systematic or formal sort of theology around various doctrines that teach us about the theology of creation. And we also incorporate moral theology when we come to the ethics part of it. And to some extent, we also incorporate liturgical theology, looking at the relationship between worship, sacrament, ethics, and the environment. And so my hope is that they can take that back where they're called to serve,
all in all, I am interested in this course because I know the importance today of ecological awareness, and I know that I know so little.
I really, unfortunately, know very little about ecology, know very little about the environment. I live in the city of Toronto. I'm an urban dweller, always have been, and I'm kind of concerned about my carbon footprint for the generation that is behind me. It's very much out of my wheelhouse, and so I know less than anyone else in the whole class, and that's not a bad place to be.
This experience has just been more than a course. It has been rejuvenating, it has been life-giving, and amongst the, kind of the disheartening things that we hear of with the desolation of some of our natural resources, it's really hopeful to know that the program here exists and it's accessible for students.
My hopes for the students that are taking this course are that they are going to have an experience of the earth that's going to connect them to the spirit of their own being, and that they would know that this is God's sacred creation.
I think God is in the midst of the garden and the earth and the seashore or the lakeshore and the water and the trees. I think it just demonstrates his handiwork. I also think about how things are so integrated with each other. We all need each other, in this earthly sphere to survive.
I think the entire creation is of God and by God and for God. It's not stagnant, as are we. We're never really staying still. We're always moving somewhere.
I would say for sure in the relationship with the people here.
God is everywhere. God is everywhere. I think I always knew that. You don't really get to grasp that until you do a course like this.
My hopes for the earth at the present time, I think, are that many more of us will become much, much more conscious. We would hope to raise consciousness together with others. We would hope to enter into dialogue so that we can, perhaps, to use that pithy statement, live more simply that others may simply live.
I would recommend it to folks who haven't considered that the environment is alive and dynamic and transforming as we are as humans, and to at least give themselves some time and space to consider the possibility that the environment is not here to serve them, but to live in co-creation with them.
My hope for the earth is that her children would learn to know that they are her children, and that we would enter into a covenant again. A covenant that is the first covenant in the Bible with Noah and all creation and with God. It's in the basis of our scriptures, it's what we're called to, and it's a wonderful vocation, and that we could learn to heal the earth. Learn, first of all, to know, yes, we have sundered our relationship, but we cannot get lost in hopelessness. We then have to give the tools, give the insights, give the practice that will help us learn as humans to participate in healing the earth and to know that we are part of one another. As Pope Francis says, we are Earth.